Sustainability in a World That Doesn't Care About Trash by Miranda Santos. Introduction: The Awakening to Reality. We live in an era of paradoxes. Never before has humanity had so much access to information, so much technological capacity, and so much potential to create a prosperous and equitable future. However, never before have we been so close to an ecological, social, and existential collapse. The trash we produce, in its vast and frightening quantity, is the most visible symptom of a deeper disease, a fundamental disconnection from our planet, from others, and from ourselves. This book, Sustainability in a World That Doesn't Care About Trash, is not just a diagnosis of this disease, but a manual for the cure. In these pages, we will embark on a journey that goes from the macro to the micro, from the global to the local, from the theoretical to the practical. We will analyze the main theories of ecology and green sustainability, not as abstract concepts, but as tools to understand and solve real problems. We will map the environmental challenges on multiple scales, from the global waste trade that drowns nations like Malaysia, to the chronic problems that plague Brazil, to the issues that knock on the door of our communities. But we will not limit ourselves to describing the problem. This book is a call to action, an invitation to revolution. We will present innovative and, at times, radical solutions that transcend traditional approaches and seek inspiration in the interconnection of all sciences, from geography to history, from chemistry to physics, from biology to psychology. We will explore how to engage companies, not by force, but by the desire to contribute, transforming sustainability into a competitive advantage and a greater purpose. And, crucially, we will give voice to those who are most affected and least heard, the communities that live amidst the trash, the activists who risk their lives, and the future generations who will inherit the planet we leave behind. We will investigate why, after all, we don't care, whether due to ignorance, the urgency of daily survival, or the apathy of a system that encourages us to rampant consumption. This is not a book to be merely read, but to be lived. It is an invitation for each of us to become an agent of change, a catalyst for a new consciousness. Sustainability is not an option, but the only condition for our survival and for the realization of our potential as a species. The time to act is now. The time to care is now. Welcome to the revolution. Chapter 1: Trash as a Mirror of Humanity, a Historical Perspective. Trash, in its essence, is a mirror of the society that produces it. It reveals our consumption habits, our level of technological development, our economic priorities, and above all, our values. To understand the current crisis, it is essential to look back and trace the history of our relationship with waste, a narrative that has led us from a circular economy integrated with nature to a linear and unsustainable model of extraction, consumption, and disposal. 1.1. From ancient societies to the Industrial Revolution, organic and local waste. In pre-industrial societies, the concept of trash, as we know it today, practically did not exist. Most waste was organic: food scraps, human and animal waste, natural building materials, and was easily reabsorbed by the environment. The economy was predominantly agrarian and local, and what was discarded by one served as input for another in a natural cycle of decomposition and renewal. Trash did not travel far. It was an integral part of the local ecosystem. 1.2. The Industrial Revolution and the Birth of Modern Trash. The Industrial Revolution, starting in the 18th century, marked a radical turning point. Mass production, the emergence of new synthetic materials such as plastics and chemicals, and accelerated urbanization gave rise to a new type of trash, non-biodegradable, toxic, and in volumes never before seen. The growth of cities generated sanitation and public health problems, and waste began to be seen as a problem to be managed, usually through landfills and incineration, solutions that only transferred the problem elsewhere without solving it. 1.3. Globalization and the international waste trade, the traveling trash. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, globalization intensified production and consumption, and with them, the generation of trash. With disposal costs and environmental regulations increasing in developed countries, a new and perverse market emerged: the global waste trade. Rich countries began to export their trash, especially plastic, electronics, and hazardous waste, to developing countries under the pretext of recycling. For years, China was the main destination for the world's recyclable trash, importing millions of tons of plastic and paper waste. However, in 2018, in a decision that shook the global waste management system, China implemented the National Sword policy, banning the import of most types of trash. The justification was clear. The country no longer wanted to be the world's dumping ground, and the environmental and social impacts of importing contaminated waste had become unsustainable. With China's door closed, the flow of trash was diverted to other countries, mainly in Southeast Asia. Malaysia, in particular, saw an exponential increase in the import of plastic waste, much of which was illegal and non-recyclable. The country became the new epicenter of the global trash crisis, facing soil and river contamination, health problems in local communities, and the burden of managing a problem it did not create. The situation was repeated in other countries such as Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia, which also began to impose restrictions on waste imports. This historical scenario is crucial to understanding the current challenges and the need for innovative and practical solutions on all scales, from global to local, to deal with the waste crisis and promote true green sustainability. Chapter 2. The Broken Mirror: Environmental Problems on Multiple Scales. In this chapter, we will analyze the main environmental problems that affect our planet on 3 distinct scales: global, national, with a focus on Malaysia and Brazil, and local. This approach will allow us to understand the complexity and interconnection of the challenges, as well as the particularities of each context. 2.1. Global level: the challenges that unite humanity. Global environmental problems transcend borders and demand unprecedented international cooperation. Among the most urgent are climate change and global warming. The increase in the concentration of greenhouse gases, GHG, in the atmosphere, mainly due to the burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial activities, is raising the planet's average temperature. This results in extreme weather events, droughts, floods, heat waves, sea level rise, melting glaciers, and loss of biodiversity. Loss of biodiversity. We are experiencing the 6th mass extinction in Earth's history, with thousands of species disappearing at an alarming rate. Habitat destruction, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation of resources are the main causes. Plastic pollution in the oceans. Millions of tons of plastic are discarded into the oceans every year, forming gigantic trash islands and threatening marine life. Microplastics are already present throughout the food chain, including in the food and water we consume. Water scarcity, excessive consumption, pollution, and climate change are depleting freshwater sources in many parts of the world, generating conflicts and humanitarian crises. Soil degradation, intensive agriculture, deforestation, and the use of pesticides are degrading soil quality, compromising food security, and the of ecosystems to regenerate. 2.2. National level: the case of Malaysia. Malaysia, as we have seen, became one of the main destinations for global plastic waste after the Chinese ban. This exacerbated the country's internal environmental problems. Plastic waste crisis. The massive import of plastic waste, often contaminated and non-recyclable, overloaded the country's waste management infrastructure. The illegal burning of plastic to extract valuable materials releases toxins into the air, and improper disposal contaminates soil and rivers. Industrial pollution in Kuala Lumpur. Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur, faces serious air pollution problems due to heavy traffic, industrial emissions, and burning. Water pollution is also a concern, with rivers contaminated by domestic sewage and industrial effluents. Deforestation. The expansion of palm oil plantations is one of the main causes of deforestation in Malaysia, threatening biodiversity, including iconic species like the orangutan. 2.3. National level, the case of Brazil. Brazil, despite its vast natural wealth, faces a series of complex and interconnected environmental challenges. Deforestation and burning. Considered Brazil's biggest environmental problem, deforestation consists of the removal of native vegetation cover, with significant losses in the Amazon, Cerrado, and Atlantic forest. Between 2000 and 2020, Brazil lost 20% of its non-forest native vegetation and 8% of its forest one. The main causes are the expansion of the agricultural frontier, livestock and monocultures like soy, destined for export, and extractive activities, wildcat mining and mining one. Burning, often used to clear land and open new agricultural areas, frequently gets out of control, turning into large fires that release vast amounts of CO2 and destroy ecosystems, as observed in the Amazon and the Cerrado one. Generalized pollution, atmospheric, water, and soil. Atmospheric. Brazil is one of the largest CO2 emitters globally, mainly due to deforestation and burning, which release the carbon retained by the vegetation. Urban growth and the use of fossil fuels also contribute to air pollution in cities. 1. Water and soil. The irregular disposal of trash, the discharge of untreated industrial effluents and sewage, and the excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides in agriculture contaminate rivers, soil, and water sources. Mining activities are also major sources of pollution, as evidenced by disasters like the Brumadinho Dam Collapse 1. The absence of basic sanitation in many cities and rural areas aggravates water and soil contamination. Silting of rivers and water sources. The accumulation of sediments in riverbeds, hindering water flow, is a common problem in Brazil. It is caused by the deforestation of riparian forests, inadequate soil management, and the disposal of trash directly into the water, especially affecting water bodies in urban centers or near areas of intense economic activity. 1. Urban solid waste, USW, management. Despite not being the main focus of the waste import crisis, like in Malaysia, Brazil faces significant challenges in managing its own USW, overloaded sanitary landfills, a low rate of selective collection, and the lack of adequate infrastructure for recycling and treatment are chronic problems, especially in large metropolises. Improper trash disposal contributes to soil and water pollution, in addition to aggravating public health problems. Broad consequences. Brazilian environmental problems produce consequences on various scales. Loss of biodiversity, with the risk of extinction of endemic species, sandification and desertification of the soil, scarcity of natural resources, modification of microclimates, contribution to global climate change, economic impacts, prolonged droughts that affect food production, intensification of floods, inundations and landslides, heat islands and thermal inversion, loss of water quality, and reduction of the quality of life and health of the population. 1. 2.4. Local level. The reality of affected communities. At the local level, environmental problems manifest even more directly and brutally. Communities living near sanitary landfills, dumps, polluting factories, or mining areas suffer from air, water, and soil contamination, which leads to a series of health problems, from respiratory diseases to cancer. The devaluation of their properties, the loss of livelihoods, such as fishing in polluted rivers, and social stigma are other direct consequences. The lack of basic sanitation, inadequate trash collection, and the absence of green areas affect the quality of life and mental health of urban populations, especially in the peripheries. It is at this level that the environmental crisis becomes most palpable and the need for just and inclusive solutions most urgent. Chapter 3. The human cost of indifference, affected and lost lives. Environmental problems are not distant abstractions. They manifest brutally and daily in people's lives, claiming lives, compromising health, and undermining the quality of life on all scales. This chapter delves into the statistics and the stories behind the numbers, revealing the human cost of our indifference and inaction in the face of the environmental crisis. Furthermore, it explores the interconnection of actions and their consequences, showing how the environment returns the favor by killing us, and how the contamination of the planet and the atmosphere clearly and consequentially impacts us. 3.1. Deaths and diseases. The silent toll of the degraded environment. Air, water, and soil pollution, climate change, and ecosystem degradation have a direct and devastating impact on human health. The World Health Organization, WHO, estimates that millions of premature deaths annually are linked to environmental factors. As Miranda Santos points out, the planet is charging us a high price, and that price is paid with human lives. Air pollution, the leading environmental cause of death worldwide. Fine particles, PM 2.5, from the burning of fossil fuels, industries, burning, and vehicular traffic penetrate deep into the lungs and bloodstream, causing respiratory diseases, asthma, bronchitis, cardiovascular diseases, heart attacks, strokes, and even lung cancer. In large urban centers and regions with a high incidence of burning, air quality becomes an invisible poison that especially affects children and the elderly. Continuous exposure to these pollutants not only raises mortality rates, but also reduces life expectancy and increases public health spending. Water contamination, the lack of basic sanitation and the contamination of water sources with sewage, industrial waste, and pesticides cause infectious diseases, cholera, typhoid fever, diarrhea, and chronic diseases. In developing countries, millions of children die each year from diseases related to contaminated water. Chemical contamination, the improper use and disposal of pesticides, heavy metals, and other toxic chemicals contaminate the food chain and the environment, leading to chronic diseases, neurological disorders, and cancer. Communities living near industrial areas or agricultural monocultures are disproportionately affected. Chapter 4. Displacement and insecurity, the social and economic impact. In addition to direct deaths, the environmental crisis generates human suffering on a large scale, forcing millions of people to abandon their homes and livelihoods, creating a scenario of social and economic instability. 4.1. Climate migration. Coastal communities are forced to relocate due to sea level rise and erosion. Arid regions become uninhabitable due to desertification. The search for water and fertile land generates conflicts and massive displacements, creating a new category of refugees, climate refugees. These forced migrations not only disrupt families and communities, but also generate social and political tensions in their new locations, increasing vulnerability and poverty. 4.2. Food insecurity. Droughts, floods, and changes in weather patterns affect agricultural production, leading to food shortages and rising prices. This exacerbates hunger and malnutrition, especially in developing countries, where subsistence depends directly on agriculture. Climate instability translates into empty plates and an uncertain future for millions. 4.3. Loss of livelihoods. Fishermen lose their livelihoods due to marine pollution and overfishing. Farmers lose their crops. Extractive communities lose access to essential natural resources. Environmental degradation destroys local economies and increases poverty, creating a vicious cycle of dependence and vulnerability. 4.4. Psychological impacts. The constant threat of natural disasters, the loss of homes and livelihoods, and the uncertainty about the future generates stress, anxiety, depression, and trauma in affected individuals and communities. Eco-anxiety and ecological grief are increasingly recognized conditions, evidencing the profound impact of the environmental crisis on collective mental health. Chapter 4, continued. Daily life under threat. How the environmental crisis alters routine and the environment returns the favor. The environmental impact is not limited to major catastrophes. It permeates daily life, altering habits, imposing restrictions, and generating invisible costs, and showing how nature, when attacked, reacts forcefully. Water and air quality. The need to buy bottled water or install expensive filters due to tap water contamination. The difficulty of practicing outdoor activities on days of high pollution. The increase in spending on medications for respiratory diseases. The air that was once synonymous with life now becomes a burden, and water, a source of purification, carries the mark of our negligence. Contaminated food. The concern with the origin of food, the presence of pesticides, and food safety. The loss of access to fresh and healthy food due to soil degradation or water scarcity. With every meal, the doubt about the purity of what we consume sets in, and nature forces us to question the very basis of our subsistence. Weather events. The interruption of basic services, energy, water, transport, during storms or floods, the constant fear of natural disasters, and the need for emergency plans, the loss of goods and properties. The climate, once predictable, becomes erratic and violent, and with every storm, the environment reminds us of our fragility and our responsibility. Increased costs, the rising cost of insurance, the loss of value of properties in risk areas, and the general increase in the cost of living due to resource scarcity and the need for adaptation. Environmental degradation translates into a growing economic burden, and the planet charges us, not only in lives, but also in resources and opportunities. As David Miranda Santos wisely observes, the environmental crisis is, in its essence, a humanitarian crisis. It is not just about saving polar bears, but about saving ourselves, our families, and our future. Understanding these daily impacts and how nature returns the favor by killing us is fundamental to mobilizing action and for society to stop not caring and start demanding and implementing effective solutions. Chapter 5. The Legacy of Good Intentions. Limitations of traditional approaches. In the face of the growing environmental crisis, a series of traditional solutions have been proposed and implemented over the last few decades. Although many of them are well-intentioned and have brought some benefits, they are insufficient to deal with the magnitude and complexity of current challenges. This chapter critically analyzes these approaches, exposing their limitations and the problems that persist or even worsen. 5.1. The Holy Trinity of Sustainability: reduce, reuse, recycle. The 3 R's of sustainability are perhaps the best-known mantra of the environmental movement. However, their effectiveness is limited by a series of factors. Focus on the end. Consumer. Responsibility is disproportionately placed on the individual, while the mass production system, which generates most of the waste, remains untouched. It is a solution that treats the symptom, not the cause. Limitations of recycling. Recycling is a complex, expensive, and energy-consuming process. Many materials, such as certain types of plastic, are not easily recyclable or lose quality with each cycle. Furthermore, the recycling infrastructure is inadequate in many parts of the world, and the market for recycled materials is volatile. Wish cycling. Many people, in an attempt to do the right thing, end up putting non-recyclable materials in selective collection, contaminating the batch and making the process even more difficult and expensive. 5.2. Landfills and incineration: hiding the trash. Sanitary landfills. Although they are an evolution of open dumps, sanitary landfills are a temporary and problematic solution. They occupy large areas, can contaminate the soil and groundwater with leachate, toxic liquid resulting from the decomposition of trash, and release methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Incineration, waste to energy. Burning trash to generate energy may seem like an attractive solution, but it releases toxic atmospheric pollutants such as dioxins and furans, which are harmful to human health and the environment. Furthermore, incineration destroys materials that could be recycled or reused and discourages the reduction of waste generation. 5.3. International agreements and public policies: the gap between paper and practice. Climate agreements like the Paris Agreement and national environmental legislation are important steps, but they often suffer from a lack of ambition, the absence of effective inspection and punishment mechanisms, and pressure from polluting sector lobbies. The distance between what is agreed upon and what is actually implemented is one of the biggest obstacles to the advancement of the environmental agenda. 5.4. The fundamental problem: a linear and extractive model. The main limitation of all these approaches is that they operate within a linear economic model of extract, produce, consume, and discard. They try to manage the trash at the end of the cycle instead of redesigning the system so that trash is not generated in the first place. Until there is a transition to a circular economy, where waste is seen as resources and reintegrated into the production chain, any solution will be palliative. Chapter 6. Why don't we care? Ignorance, necessity, and apathy. If the problems are so serious and the consequences so devastating, why does humanity, in general, seem to not care about trash and the environmental crisis? The answer is not simple and involves a complex web of psychological, social, economic, and cultural factors. This chapter explores the roots of our apparent indifference, a crucial step to developing solutions that are not only technically viable, but also humanly possible. 6.1. The Veil of Ignorance and Disinformation. Despite the abundance of information, many people still do not understand the real dimension of the environmental crisis. This is due to a series of factors: scientific complexity, climate and ecology. Science can be complex and difficult for the lay public to access. Disinformation and fake news. Interest groups linked to polluting industries actively promote disinformation, denying the existence of climate change or minimizing its impacts, generating confusion and skepticism. Psychological distance. The worst effects of the environmental crisis often seem distant in time, future, and space in other countries or ecosystems, which makes it difficult to perceive an immediate and personal threat. 6.2. The tyranny of urgency, the concern with daily bread. For a large portion of the world's population, the concern with sustainability is a luxury they cannot afford. As David Miranda Santos highlights, it is difficult to worry about the fate of the planet when the immediate concern is what they will eat that day. Poverty and inequality. People living in poverty are focused on their basic survival needs: food, water, housing, security. The environmental crisis is another layer of vulnerability in their already precarious lives, but the lack of resources and political power prevents them from acting. Lack of time and mental space. Modern life, with its long working hours, stress, and information overload, leaves little time and energy to dedicate to complex issues like sustainability. The human mind tends to prioritize what is urgent over what is important. 6.3. Apathy, denial, and resistance to change. Even among those who have knowledge and resources, apathy and resistance to change are significant barriers. Inertia and habit. Our brains are programmed to follow routines and habits. Changing consumption patterns and lifestyle requires effort and discipline, and many people prefer the convenience of the status quo. Denial and cognitive dissonance. Confronting the reality of the environmental crisis can be psychologically painful. To avoid this discomfort, many people resort to denial, minimizing the problem or believing that it will not affect them. Cognitive dissonance occurs when our actions, consuming unsustainably, conflict with our beliefs, knowing that this is harmful, and the easiest way to resolve this conflict is to change the belief, not the action. Feeling of impotence. The scale of the problem can seem so overwhelming that individuals feel powerless, believing that their actions will not make a difference. This leads to paralysis and the transfer of responsibility to governments and companies. Culture of consumption. We live in a society that glorifies consumption and associates happiness with the possession of material goods. Changing this mentality requires a profound cultural and value transformation. Understanding these barriers is the first step to overcoming them. Solutions to the environmental crisis must therefore be not only ecological, but also social and psychological, offering paths that are accessible, fair, and that inspire a sense of purpose and collective efficacy. Chapter 7. Sustainability and Business: Advantages, Disadvantages, and Corporate Engagement. The transition to a sustainable economy fundamentally depends on the engagement of the private sector. For a long time, sustainability was seen as a cost, a regulatory burden, or at best, a marketing tool. However, a growing number of companies are discovering that sustainability can be a powerful source of innovation, resilience, and competitive advantage. This chapter explores how to overcome corporate reluctance, presenting the advantages of contributing and the losses of not doing so. 7.1. The advantages of being sustainable: what companies gain. Cost reduction and increased efficiency. Sustainable practices, such as optimizing the use of energy and raw materials, reducing waste, and implementing the circular economy, lead to a significant reduction in operational costs. Innovation and opening of new markets. The search for sustainable solutions stimulates innovation in products, services, and business models. Companies that develop clean technologies, ecological products, or circular economy solutions can access new markets and meet a growing demand from conscious consumers. Brand valuation and reputation. A good reputation in sustainability attracts and retains talent, strengthens customer loyalty, and improves relationships with investors and regulators. In a transparent and connected world, reputation is one of a company's most valuable assets. Risk management. Sustainability helps the company anticipate and manage a series of risks, such as the scarcity of natural resources, the volatility of commodity prices, new environmental regulations, and the impacts of climate change on its operations and supply chains. Access to financing and investments. Investors are increasingly using environmental, social, and governance (ESG) criteria to make their decisions. Companies with good sustainability performance have easier access to capital and tend to have a lower cost of financing. 7.2. The price of inaction. What companies lose. Loss of competitiveness and relevance. Companies that ignore sustainability run the risk of becoming obsolete, losing market share to more innovative competitors aligned with the new demands of society. Regulatory and legal risks. Environmental legislation is becoming increasingly rigorous worldwide. Polluting companies are subject to heavy fines, embargoes, lawsuits, and even the suspension of their activities. Reputation, damage, and boycotts. Environmental scandals can cause irreparable damage to a company's reputation, leading to consumer boycotts, loss of market value, and difficulty in attracting and retaining talent. Increased costs and loss of efficiency, dependence on scarce and volatile resources, excessive waste generation, and inefficient energy consumption represent increasing costs and a loss of competitiveness in the long term. Difficulty in accessing markets and financing. Many countries and economic blocs are imposing barriers on products that do not meet certain environmental standards. Furthermore, investors and banks are increasingly reluctant to finance companies with high environmental risk. 7.3. Strategies to engage the private sector. Beyond punishment. To overcome reluctance and promote genuine engagement, it is necessary to go beyond inspection and punishment, creating an environment that rewards environmental responsibility. Fiscal and economic incentives. Governments can offer tax reductions, lower interest credit lines, and other incentives for companies that invest in clean technologies, implement circular economy programs, or obtain environmental certifications. Circular business models promote the transition from linear to circular models, where trash becomes raw material for new products, creating new sources of revenue and reducing dependence on virgin resources. Technological innovation and collaboration encourage research and development of clean technologies and create collaboration platforms between companies, universities, and research centers to accelerate innovation. Education and training. Offer training and capacity-building programs for managers and employees on the principles of sustainability and the business opportunities it offers. Consumer and investor pressure. Conscious consumers and engaged investors have immense power to pressure companies to adopt more sustainable practices. Transparency and the availability of information about companies' environmental performance are fundamental for this pressure to be effective. The final goal is to create a virtuous cycle where sustainability generates profit. Profit finances more sustainability, and companies become protagonists, not antagonists, in building a fairer and more prosperous future. Chapter 8. Innovative and revolutionary solutions, a new paradigm for the future. Traditional solutions have proven insufficient. To face the environmental crisis in its entirety, we need a paradigm shift, a revolution in thought and action. This chapter presents a series of innovative and, at times, radical solutions that combine knowledge from different areas and seek to attack the root of the problems. from the macro to the micro. 8.1. Macro level, rethinking global governance and the economy. Global Plastic Treaty. Negotiate and implement a legally binding international treaty to end plastic pollution, establishing ambitious goals for the reduction of virgin plastic production, the elimination of single-use plastics, and the creation of a global circular economy system. Carbon taxation and emissions trading. Implement a global price for carbon, either through taxes or an emissions trading system, so that polluters pay for the damage they cause, and there is an economic incentive for the transition to clean energy. Disintegration theory and extraterrestrial disposal. David Miranda Santos proposes a radical solution for non-recyclable waste. Trash must be taken out of Earth by technological means so that its toxicity does not affect the terrestrial life cycle. A plausible destination for this endeavor, considering its inhospitable nature and its gravitational mass that could assist in the process of disintegration or containment, would be Jupiter. This gas giant, with its hostile atmosphere and crushing pressures, represents an environment where humanity's non-reusable trash could be sent without compromising the habitability of other celestial bodies or the terrestrial life cycle, transforming a terrestrial problem into a cosmic solution. And he complements, the disintegration theory complements resignification, transforming waste impossible to reuse into elements that do not harm the environment. This thesis proposes the development of advanced technologies to completely disintegrate non-biodegradable waste, or, alternatively, send it to extraterrestrial destinations where its toxicity and impact would be null for terrestrial life. The idea of Jupiter as a cosmic sink for humanity's most recalcitrant trash, although audacious, highlights the need to think outside the box and consider cutting-edge engineering and material science solutions, as well as advances in propulsion and space logistics, to solve a problem that transcends planetary boundaries. 8.2. National level. Public policies for transformation. Focus, Malaysia and Brazil. Ban on waste imports. Malaysia. Strengthen and rigorously enforce the ban on plastic waste imports, investing in port and border inspection and in international cooperation to combat waste trafficking. Zero deforestation and land regularization. Brazil. Implement a zero-tolerance policy for illegal deforestation, combined with effective land regularization and the promotion of sustainable agricultural practices that do not require the expansion of the agricultural frontier. Universal basic sanitation. Brazil. Massive investment in infrastructure for the collection and treatment of sewage and solid waste, especially in peripheral and rural areas, to combat water and soil contamination and public health problems. Incentives for the circular economy. Create tax incentives and subsidies for companies that adopt circular economy models, such as industrial symbiosis and the use of recycled materials. 8.3. Local level, the power of community and technology. Decentralized waste management. Implement small-scale, community-based waste management systems, such as composting centers and local recycling cooperatives, generating income and strengthening social ties. Smart waste bins and IoT, Internet of Things. Use technology to monitor the level of waste in bins and optimize collection routes, reducing costs and carbon emissions. Urban agriculture and green infrastructure. Transform abandoned urban spaces into community gardens and green areas, improving air quality, reducing heat islands, and promoting food security. Chapter 9. The Abilene Dossier, a strategic and inspirational guide. The Abilene Dossier, a comprehensive guide developed by David Miranda Santos, serves as a strategic and inspirational framework for action. It integrates concepts of conscious leadership, sustainable entrepreneurship, active citizenship, human dignity, technological innovation, and social justice. The dossier is structured around several key axes. 9.1. Axis 1. Conscious leadership and sustainable entrepreneurship. This axis emphasizes that leadership must be guided by a deep commitment to sustainability, integrating environmental and social values into the core of the business. 9.2. Axis 2. Active citizenship and political engagement. It highlights the importance of citizens actively participating in the political process, demanding sustainable policies, and holding governments and companies accountable. 9.3. Axis 3. Dignity and ethics. This axis connects the issue of trash to human dignity, arguing that a society that allows its most vulnerable members to live surrounded by waste is, in essence, devaluing them. 9.4. Axis 4. Technological innovation and disintegration theory. It reinforces the need for investments in research and development of disruptive solutions, such as the disintegration theory, to address environmental problems at their root. 9.5. Axis 5. Climate justice and social ecology. This axis integrates the fight against environmental inequality with the promotion of more livable and equitable urban spaces. 9.6. Axis 6. Circular economy and value generation. It focuses on the regenerative economic model, where waste is transformed into resources, combining sustainability with value generation. 9.7. Axis 7. Education and awareness. It proposes that education and awareness campaigns are essential to transform knowledge into action and attract financial resources for sustainability. 9.8. Axis 8. Hybrid businesses and profit with purpose. It advocates for companies that integrate profit with social and environmental impact, suggesting fiscal incentives for proven environmental responsibility. 9.9. Axis 9. Giving voice to communities and minorities. It emphasizes the importance of empowering marginalized communities, as the most effective and just solutions come from those who live the problem daily. 9.10. Axis X. Ethical and philosophical reflection. David Miranda. Santos's reflection is profound. Why don't kings keep trash in castles? Because it represents disorganization and impurity. Therefore, by virtue and dignity, trash should not coexist with the marginalized, preventing society from internalizing the idea of devaluation. This powerful metaphor connects waste management to the perception of human value and dignity. 9.11. Conclusion of the Abilene Dossier. A strategic and inspirational guide. The Abilene Dossier, enriched by David Miranda Santos's observations and insights, serves as a strategic and inspirational guide for local, national, and global actions, promoting environmental sustainability, social well-being, climate justice, circular economy, education and citizen engagement, empowerment of marginalized communities. David Miranda Santos's final observation synthesizes the urgency and interconnectedness of all these elements. If we destroy the planet, there will be nowhere to spend our profit. Therefore, we must unite purpose, social justice, and sustainability in all our actions. This compendium of ideas is a call to action for humanity to redefine its relationship with the planet and with its own waste, transforming the challenge into an opportunity for a fairer and more prosperous future. Chapter 10. Critical analysis of the environmental movement, cowspiracy, and the proposal of veganism. This chapter integrates the analyses of the documentary Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret, 2014, the discussions with ChatGPT, and David Miranda Santos's profound reflections on the environmental movement and the urgency of radical solutions, such as veganism. It serves as a culmination of the critique and the proposal of a new path for sustainability. 10.1. The Environmental Epiphany and the True Enemy. The documentary Cowspiracy, directed by Kip Anderson and Keegan Kuhn, and produced in partnership with Leonardo DiCaprio, marked a turning point in the environmental debate. Kip Anderson, a dedicated environmentalist, begins his journey with the belief that individual actions, such as recycling, saving water, and cycling, would be enough to save the planet. However, a shocking discovery changes his perspective, revealing what David Miranda Santos describes as the emotional and conceptual core of Cowspiracy, the moment of the environmental epiphany. The documentary filmmaker begins by saying that he strictly followed all the advice of a good environmentalist. He recycled trash, used a bicycle instead of a car, saved water, turned off the lights. He was disciplined. He believed that the sum of small attitudes was enough to curb the environmental collapse. But on a certain day, everything changed. Upon reading a message from a friend which contained a United Nations report, Kip Anderson discovered something that left him silent. The majority of greenhouse gas emissions did not come from cars, factories, or cities. They came from livestock and animal agriculture. This revelation dismantles Anderson's belief that his individual efforts were sufficient, exposing them as a symbolic mitigation that did not address the root of the problem. The data presented by the documentary, based on reports from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, are alarming and demonstrate the disproportionality of the impact of livestock. Greenhouse gas, GHG emissions. Livestock is responsible for about 18% of global GHG emissions, surpassing all forms of transport combined. Methane, CH4, released mainly by ruminant animals, has a global warming potential 25 times greater than carbon dioxide, CO2, over a period of 100 years. In 20 years, this potential is even greater, about 80 times. Livestock is not just a contributor, but a primary driver of climate change, often underestimated or intentionally ignored. Deforestation. Cattle ranching is the main cause of deforestation in the Amazon, accounting for approximately 80% of the devastation. Forests, which act as carbon sinks, are cleared to make way for pastures or feed crops, soy, corn, resulting in a double loss for the planet: loss of carbon sequestration and increased methane emissions. With every steak consumed, a portion of the forest is sacrificed. Water consumption. The livestock industry is one of the largest consumers of fresh water on the planet, using 29% of available water. More than 1,000 liters of water are needed to produce a single glass of milk and almost 15,000 liters to generate 1 kilogram of beef. A stark contrast to the 300 liters needed for 1 kilogram of vegetables. In a world where water scarcity is a growing reality, livestock proves to be an unsustainable sink of a vital resource. Land use. Livestock occupies 45% of the planet's habitable land, a vast area that could be used for reforestation, sustainable agriculture for human food, or biodiversity conservation. This massive land occupation not only destroys natural habitats, but also directly competes with the production of food for direct human consumption. Waste generation. The animal industry generates more than 130 times more excrement than the human population, contaminating rivers, soil, and aquifers with nitrates, phosphates, and pathogens. This biological and chemical pollution affects aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems, compromising public health and biodiversity. These numbers directly confront the traditional narrative that the main environmental villains are automobiles or the energy industry. Cowspiracy argues that the modern human's plate of food is more destructive than any combustion engine, leading to David Miranda Santos's reflection. What good is turning off the light if the plate we eat is turning off the planet? 10.2. Institutional silence, the critique of environmental movements. One of the most forceful points of the documentary, and which David Miranda Santos emphasizes in his discussions, is the strategic silence of large environmental organizations. After his discovery, Kip Anderson sought information about the impact of livestock from renowned NGOs such as Greenpeace, Sierra Club, Rainforest Action Network, and Oceana. The response was evasion, silence, and discomfort. He sought information from several NGOs, including Greenpeace, Sierra Club, Rainforest Action Network, and other globally recognized entities. To his surprise, none of them significantly mentioned the impact of livestock on gas emissions, nor the devastating consequences of deforestation for pastures or water consumption for the production of meat and dairy. This omission raises serious questions about the integrity and effectiveness of the environmental movement. Cowspiracy suggests that this silence is not accidental, but rather an implicit alliance between the ecological discourse and corporate interests. Large NGOs, often dependent on funding and donations from sectors that would be directly harmed by an open campaign against the consumption of animal products, avoid addressing the most impactful topic, focusing on less controversial issues such as the use of plastic straws or saving water in the shower. This critique of environmental movements is fundamental to the book as it exposes cosmetic sustainability, the kind that calms consciences but avoids touching the economic interests that sustain the destruction. The documentary's narrative reveals a manipulation of global narratives where the focus is diverted from the true problem to more convenient enemies, such as the automobile or the fossil fuel industry, while industrial livestock, with its overwhelming impact, remains untouchable. This is a critique of the lack of courage and complacency, where convenience prevails over scientific truth. 10.3. Moral dissonance and resistance to transformation. The reasons for this resistance are complex and multifaceted, as already addressed in Chapter 6. Ignorance, concern with basic needs, lack of time and space to worry about environmental issues, and the strong cultural and emotional attachment to meat and animal products. The documentary suggests that the difficulty in confronting the impact of livestock lies in its deep integration into our culture, economy, and identity. Meat is not just food, it is tradition, status, comfort, and breaking with this requires a profound reevaluation of personal and collective values. 10.4. Veganism as a safe and priority solution. The final message of Cowspiracy is provocative and symbolic. The true sustainable revolution begins on the plate. It is not enough to recycle trash or save water if we continue to sustain an industry that devastates entire ecosystems. The documentary's proposal, which this book endorses as a safe and priority solution, is veganism. Veganism here is not presented merely as an ideology or an ethical choice regarding animals, but as a practice of planetary survival and an environmental solution with immediate application and profound impact. By eliminating the consumption of animal products, it is possible to drastically reduce GHG emissions. By decreasing the demand for meat and dairy, the raising of animals that emit methane and nitrous oxide is reduced, as is the need for deforestation for pastures and feed crops. The transition to plant-based diets can cut food-related GHG emissions by up to 70%. Conserve water resources. The production of plant foods requires significantly less water than the production of animal foods. A vegan diet can reduce water consumption by up to 60% compared to a carnivorous diet. Free up land. Large tracts of land currently used for pastures and feed cultivation could be reforested, used for sustainable agriculture for human consumption or for the conservation of biodiversity. Chapter 11. The Path to the Future, Uniting Purpose, Justice, and Sustainability. The journey through the pages of this book has revealed a fundamental truth. The environmental crisis is not a technical problem to be solved by technology alone, but a crisis of values, ethics, and human connection. The trash we produce is the physical manifestation of our collective indifference and the linear extractive model that governs our world. The solutions presented, from the circular economy to the audacious disintegration theory and the critical analysis of the Cowspiracy documentary, all point to a single non-negotiable path: a revolution of consciousness that unites purpose, social justice, and sustainability. 11.1. The Synthesis of the Revolution. Purpose beyond profit. Companies must adopt the ESG criteria not as a compliance measure, but as the core of their mission. The pursuit of profit must be intrinsically linked to the well-being of the planet and society. Justice as the foundation. The environmental struggle is inseparable from the fight for social justice. Climate change and pollution disproportionately affect the most vulnerable. Solutions must be inclusive, giving voice and power to marginalized communities. Radical solutions. We must embrace solutions that challenge the status quo, such as the transition to 100% clean energy, the Global Plastic Treaty, and the adoption of plant-based diets as a priority environmental action. The power of the individual. The personal revolution, guided by the 5 R's: refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, recycle, and conscious consumption, is the catalyst for collective change. 11.2. The Final Call to Action. The time for symbolic mitigation is over. The planet is charging us a high price, and that price is paid with human lives and the destruction of the only home we have. The legacy we choose to leave will not be measured by the wealth we accumulate, but by the quality of the planet we preserve. The choice is between continuing on the path of indifference and embracing the revolution of consciousness. The time for apathy is over. The time for action is now. The time to care is now. Welcome to the revolution. Conclusion: the legacy we choose to leave. The journey through the pages of Sustainability in a World That Doesn't Care About Trash reveals a harsh truth. The crisis we face is not merely environmental, but a crisis of values, a crisis of connection. The trash we discard is a physical manifestation of the disconnection we feel from the world around us. But the book also offers a profound hope. The solutions are available, the technology exists, and the path to a regenerative future is clear. The choice is ours. We can continue on the path of indifference, paying the high price of human lives and ecological collapse, or we can embrace the revolution of consciousness. The legacy we leave to future generations will not be measured by the wealth we accumulate, but by the quality of the planet we preserve. The time for apathy is over. The time for action is now. The time to care is now. Welcome to the revolution.